in legal policy and provision and advocating for sensitization and strengthening of support systems for the survivors. Furthering this agenda, this research uses feminist legal approach to understand women's experiences of violence. The research is located in three states of India: Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and West Bengal, at urban, semi-urban, and rural sites in these states. The research examines how victims of domestic violence navigate the day-to-day realities of violence, how they access support and legal services, and the possible factors, maybe structural, institutional, and cultural, that impede or enable access to services and legal provision. As the very title of the research suggests, the experiences of survivors are central to this inquiry. Hence, we conducted in-depth interviews with 180 survivors from these three states, and in addition, interviews of other major stakeholders such as protection officers, medical practitioners, lawyers, police, NGOs working on the issues of violence against women, and the community members. The research was conducted in the span of 2 years, 2020 to 2022, and a national report was launched in Kolkata in January 2023, and a concluding conference took place in last year, April, at Oxford University. And stakeholder workshops were organized in respective states to share the findings with the major stakeholders in those respective states. We believe and we hope that findings of this research will inform future policy recommendations to address gap between law and everyday practice. So this was, about the project, and my colleagues will unfold the other major aspects of the project. Thank you very much.
I now invite Nandini Ghosh to speak about the findings.
Thank you. So the major findings from this project basically were what was very evident is the fact that domestic violence is endemic in society, and this everyday nature of intimate violence is situated within a wider landscape of state and societal gendered violence. So this is one of the reasons why the study found that despite legal reform, levels of help seeking among survivors of domestic violence continues to be very low. This is because survivors, community, and stakeholders all together assumed that domestic violence was the norm, and thus survival strategies were primarily oriented towards self-reliance. One of the major findings is the way in which women were compelled to engage in survival work, and survival strategies were intentional as well as intuitive and concerned practices of self-reliance, retaliation and resistance, managing theirs and others' emotions and mental health, exiting relationships both temporarily and permanently, and deriving resilience through their connections to families, friends, and neighbors. Survivors talked about how thresholds of violence affected seeking help, support, and justice. The moments at which violence became too much concerned an escalation in the intensity or severity of violence, the revelation of extramarital affairs, the need to protect the welfare and well-being of children, and the actions of concerned others. We saw there was no definite trajectory leading to exit, rather turning points which were several and often non-linear. Next. Survivors had contrasting and situated ideas of justice, with urban survivors more likely than rural survivors to know about domestic violence laws. Ideas of justice were balanced with the idea of living peacefully and of preserving the marriage and the family. While most women spoke of economic justice, particularly in the context of children's welfare and a survivor's independence. One major finding for us has been that access to livelihood becomes an important element of exit. Most survivors turn to their natal families first for emotional and material support, as well as for access to informal mediation and justice mechanisms. Beyond family, women sought help from community and quasi-legal justice mechanisms like faith-based organizations, local clubs, panchayats, and tribal councils. But these interventions were temporary and they were not enforced and often reproduced rather than challenged the unequal power relations that underpin the survivors' experiences. At the institutional level, survivors often approach the police for assistance when the severity of violence became too much, but there was very little support provided due to the cultures of disbelief, high levels of corruption, failure to implement the PWGVA guidelines, and discriminatory attitudes towards women, particularly marginalized groups. We have found that help seeking experience for marginal women is different from mainstream dominant communities. Institutional violence often reproduces structural violence on lower caste, minorities, poor, disabled, and queer women. Our findings show the negative impact of failing to fund the PWGVA's support infrastructure, namely the protection officers, and thus the survivors had very little idea about these protection officers. However, the survivors who reported encounters with protection officers to be positive, but the engagement with the justice system was sporadic. Very few women engaged lawyers, the inadequate operation of the courts and the judicial system. There were delays in court proceedings, inconsistencies, and problems with the procedures for obtaining the maintenance orders, and a lack of sensitivity towards survivors among the members of the judiciary. So, next, to stand a chance of realizing their rights, survivors had to be lucky to come across a well trained and supportive police or protection officer, a good NGO, high quality district level legal services authority lawyer, and an empathetic judge. We found, however, that there was a lot of friendship and solidarity among the women who found themselves to be co-survivors. NGOs which worked with rights-based approach and feminist consciousness were able to instill a degree of criticality among the survivors towards the institution of marriage. We also found that the institutional marginalization leads to other forms of solidarity and community building. I'm not talking about the recommendations here, which you will find in the leaflets that we have. And I would like to pass on the baton now to my next co-colleague here about the rest of the project.
Hi, I'm Philippa. Thank you, Nandini. So Nandini was speaking over a graphic booklet that we've produced in collaboration with Nifty Fox. It's the outcome of us all getting together and really kind of storyboarding our ideas in terms of the findings from the project that Nandini's just been talking about. So this, along with a Hindi version, are available on our website to download to use as might be useful in different avenues of work and support. So there's this version as well. And also, alongside the graphic novel, or the graphic booklet, it's just 6 pages, let's call it a booklet, there are a series of animations with different languages. We'll share the English language version, but also we have the animation produced in Tamil, Bengali, and Marathi, and Hindi as well.
The way we are conditioned, it was hard to complain about any suffering. Home, a place that should be safe, is also a site of violence. Domestic violence includes verbal, psychological, sexual, financial, and physical abuse, and coercive control by intimate partners and family members. Marriage is where most women experience violence. Researchers from India and the UK interviewed 180 survivors from West Bengal, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu to understand how women coped in violent situations. Survivors described how their shame around domestic violence stopped them accessing help. I felt it was my mistake, that I was responsible for this violence. I thought I should make changes rather than ask for help. This was reinforced by the opinion of some parents that some violence was tolerable or normal within marriage. My parents told me to tolerate this violence, which I did. That gave my husband more courage to harass me. So women are compelled to adjust to their husband's demands. My parents keep asking me to adjust. They blame me for him being violent towards me.
Is it audible?
No.
Philippa, it
Did
is.
you not trust her?
Is it not
Now-
audible? Ah, we didn't test that bit. It's audible on mine. Oh, because I had muted myself. Ah, that's why. So it went off halfway through.
Could you play it over?
Yeah, I'll play it over. Apologies, everyone. Sorry, I was just thinking I had someone coming in.
The way we are conditioned, it was hard to complain about any suffering. Home, a place that should be safe, is also a site of violence. Domestic violence includes verbal, psychological, sexual, financial, and physical abuse, and coercive control by intimate partners and family members. Marriage is where most women experience violence. Researchers from India and the UK interviewed 180 survivors from West Bengal, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu to understand how women coped in violent situations. Survivors described how their shame around domestic violence stopped them accessing help. I felt it was my mistake, that I was responsible for this violence. I thought I should make changes rather than ask for help. This was reinforced by the opinion of some parents that some violence was tolerable or normal within marriage. My parents told me to tolerate this violence, which I did. That gave my husband more courage to harass me. So women are compelled to adjust to their husband's demands. My parents keep asking me to adjust. They blame me for him being violent towards me. They say he hits me because I don't let him sleep with me. Police also told survivors to tolerate violence. When I approached a female police officer and showed her my bruises, she told me to ignore it since I had to live with my husband. Despite these barriers, some women did get help from family, neighbors, and friends. When I told my family about all this, they said, "Did you not trust us? Why did you endure all this?" From that day onward, they have always supported me. With nowhere to turn, some survivors developed their own resilience. No one had told me, "You need to become self-sufficient." Now I'm 33 years old. My back is to the wall. I will stand up for myself. Domestic violence is unacceptable. Let us refuse to tolerate violence. Let us enable survivors to speak up. Let us start the conversation with family and friends about domestic violence and what you could or can do to help.
I'm glad it worked that time. So the film, as you will have seen from the thanks at the end, draws on the words of survivors from the interviews that we conducted in the research. You'll have perhaps recognised Twana and Ruchira's voice in the film as well. So many thanks to colleagues for amazing work on that. We also, as I said, the animations are in Bengali, Tamil, Marathi, and Hindi as well, and available to download on our website, which we'll show you the link to shortly. And you can do so in low resolution versions, which will make it easy to circulate on social media or WhatsApp or whichever channel you use.
The way we are conditioned, it
I will try and
was hard to complain
move on from to the next.
about any suffering.
Don't know how to get to the next slide. Okay, this is the Hindi version. But
जिस तरह के संस्कार हमें दिए गए हैं, किसी भी पीड़ा के बारे में शिकायत करना कठिन था।
कई बार हम अपने घर में
but we'll leave that for you to listen and watch in your own time, I think. We just finally want to share another aspect of the project, which is also visual and speaks to the way in which I think we find it quite challenging to visualize or to make visible domestic violence and gender-based violence. So as a project, we also thought about how we might reframe violence in the public sphere. So also not just the animations, but working with photographers, feminist and queer photographers across the 3 states. So I'll share with you just some of the photographs that the photographers have produced for the project, and which importantly are open access. So they're free for everyone to use and download in your work, on your websites, in your publications, on social media, however's useful for your projects and for the work that you do. Just acknowledge that the origin of them in the Surviving Violence Project is all we ask for. So we were inspired by feminism in India and their campaigns to reframe and to think differently about how domestic violence is portrayed in the media. Often it's a kind of sort of very overbearing images of dominant males and physical violence, but thinking about other ways of portraying domestic violence was really important to us. So the brief, when working with 3 photographers, was to think about the kind of mundane and everyday nature of domestic violence, of surviving violence, of resisting, of persisting, sometimes of staying silent as persistence as well. So these are photographs by Debalina working with colleagues in West Bengal. And in Maharashtra, Vidya Kulkarni, see her own distinct style, thinking, and one of the aspects of the brief was not to have kind of visible survivors, but to kind of have more sort of slightly obscure images of women in their lives. And in Tamil Nadu, Priyadarshini Ravichandran. And as I say, all these images are available on the website. Priya Darshini is actually presenting these in the Chennai Photography Biennale coming up in just a few weeks. And so here on the website, you can access these. They're all available open access. And finally, all of the resources are on the website. You'll see the web link, the graphic booklets that Nandini spoke to. There are also other reports that the project has produced. And then finally, of course, the animations as well. And I think I'll hand back to Swana.
Ma'am, I think you'll have to unmute yourself.
Happy to take questions now. And also, if you'd like us to show you any of the other videos in the other languages, we can play one of them. Playing all of them would be, I think, maybe a little tedious, but if there's any specific request, we could play that. And if you have questions, just unmute and speak. I've left the link to the project in the chat, so you can also just click there and go to, and I will enter it with the full HTTP.
Yeah, hi, I'm Deepa here. I'm a reporter with the Hindu newspaper in Chennai. I have a question. So, at what audiences are these videos and comics targeted at?
Would anyone else like to answer? Please just everybody unmute and speak.
Yeah, we were just discussing this. We would be like wanting to disseminate this kind of information to college students, and also the videos, particularly the animated videos, particularly to maybe NGOs that work with women, that work on issues of domestic violence, which they can use to educate the women that they work.
I'll just add to that that the videos are very short and they're available in very low resolutions. And the hope is that we will all be able to WhatsApp it in our communities. And, the dream is that they will go viral and people will get something out of it. But they're designed to be shared very, very easily. And they're, of course, also available on the web for people to screen in a training or in a classroom, both ways.
Do they have the helpline numbers? I know it's a very basic question.
No, these don't, because there are 4 states and the helpline numbers vary. But each of us in our contexts has helpline numbers listed in different places. And somebody using these could put those together. For example, in Tamil Nadu, Prajna has the mapping that we did in this project is now available on a Google spreadsheet that anyone can access. So we could, if we were to post these out, we would put the two together for ease of use. Or we could put the two together.
Okay, so these 180 women that you have interviewed, so from which kind of financial background or economic strata are these from?
One of you.
So when we were doing the data collection, the mandate was to go across categories, but I think predominantly the data is from middle class and lower middle class women, whom we could access much easily. But I think about 10 to 15% of the sample of this 180 would be women from upper class backgrounds.
Yeah. I would say that I would agree. I think there was quite a spread in terms of class backgrounds, but also because we did interviews in urban, semi-urban, and rural areas, that ensured a different kind of spread in terms of occupation and access to resources. So,
Okay. So, but isn't this a very small sample size?
yes.
Okay.
It's always a small sample size, no?
Yeah, I
And
know.
relative to
So,
the universe.
Yeah. No, but
one
are
of
we?
the
Hmm.
one of the reasons the sample was small because for each of the women we had very detailed interviews about not just the experience of violence but about the way in which they accessed support and legal remedies. So when we started looking at the data, actually, it seemed to be a huge amount of data, though it was only, say, 60 women in each state. So that was also one of the reasons for not going for, because we couldn't use the survey method for this kind of a topic. It was more in-depth interviews, and that takes time, and which limits the sample size.
Okay. Now, are you planning to scale up maybe the interviews just to get more data?
I think this data is representative enough because we made every effort to ensure intersectionality. We distribute our samples in urban, semi-urban, and rural sites of each respective states. So we ensure that and as Nandini said before, that these are in-depth qualitative interviews. Okay, and we have lot of data, and we guess that this is representative data, and based on that only recommendations have been done for the larger reforms and strengthening our systems.
Okay. So I joined a bit late because I was not able to connect. There's some issue with the connection for me. So the recommendations, um, the judiciary in particular, um, there was a mention that they were not very helpful at times. So, is there any? Are you looking at any specific targeting them in any specific manner? What can be done for that? One is judiciary, and the other is also police, lawmakers, and whole thing of government officials. So, what can we do for that?
So actually, if you, I mean, I can comment on behalf of Nari Samata Mancha because we are a feminist organization working for many years in Maharashtra, and we have been always advocating for all these things, throughout all these years. And with this research, we have some, concrete data, some, valid findings in our hand, and that really makes a point to negotiate to make advocacy with the government machineries. We had a dissemination workshop, stakeholder workshops in Maharashtra last year, and where all major stakeholders, including Commissioner for Women and Child Development, was invited there, and the effort is to how our systems can be strengthened further. So we are constantly, making advocacy efforts with the appropriate government systems.
Yeah, I
do
would
they-
echo that for Tamil Nadu.
Fortunately, on implementation of PWDVA as such, so we are more onto it, how those systems can be really sensitized and strengthened further.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Preeti said in the Tamil Nadu context. I think the project actually was concluded about 1.5 years ago, and since then we've been doing a lot of different kinds of outreach. Some sort of public and a lot of it quieter on the ground wherever we work. So these graphic outputs come, let's say, far into the outreach journey of the project. And so this process is already underway. But I also want to acknowledge that, projects like this reinforce some things that we already know. Around the country, there are people working on all the things that are in our recommendations and that you are asking about. So this work is ongoing, and we are not the first to find these things, nor will we be the last to work on them, unfortunately.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Sorry
much.
to have asked very basic questions.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking them.
Yes, yes.
Any others? I mean, we're here.
Yeah.
Happy to talk.
Hi. Yeah, this is Rama Sarode, and I'm a lawyer by training. Congratulations on this work. It's really important. Any kind of work in this area is always important. One question that I had was, are there any plans to collaborate with stakeholders to provide the necessary support for the survivors when this material gets disseminated and people approach? Is there any plan on collaboration with different stakeholders?
I mean, we can do that. This is whatever we saw the resources today. It's like open access. So everybody can access it, can download it, and can use it. But as you suggested, Rama, that's a very good suggestion. Maybe we can organize something at Maharashtra level where we can think more systematically on its dissemination and how it can be used more efficiently. Thanks for that suggestion.
Thank you. So just one more thing, if that's useful. In Maharashtra, we've done work on writing user manuals for stakeholders. It was initiated by the Women's Study Center of ILS Law College, supported by SwissAid, and I was one of the authors for writing a user manual for lawyers, and that it has been accepted by the Commissionerate Office of Women and Child Development. It's been translated into English. So if it's of any help and it needs to be translated in other languages, I'm sure it can be used, and probably if we've missed something, some things can be added to those manuals.
And if authors, and I mean the whoever made that resource, Rama, you mentioned, if they are open, that can be also have space on this website, so it can be like open access for all.
Definitely. So it's SwissAid that has supported. So you can
So
check
we can
with them.
talk
I'm
to
sure
them
they'll be
further.
happy. Yeah. Sure.
Certainly. Thank you.
I mean, sorry, can I just jump in? I mean, that sounds like a brilliant resource, and it would also, I mean, this animation and booklet, the kind of things that could accompany those sort of training manuals. So if that was useful, so to attach them to those. And sorry, I've got building work going on, so I'm going to keep muting myself.
We're happy to take other questions, comments, if there are any. We're also all accessible, so you could reach us through the website. Hi, Pranita. Go ahead and ask or speak. Unmute yourself and speak, Pranita.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Hello. So thank you for the wonderful presentation. It was the visuals are very pleasing. So it's more of a question regarding the photography thing. So I just wanted to know, when the photographs were taken, were they also being interviewed? Were the photographs informed by the personal lives of people, and were the photographs of the people who were interviewed? So that was just one question I wanted to ask, because the photographs were very interesting to look at, very emotive. It was nice to see.
I mean, I'm happy to start, and for Nandini and Preeti to chip in. So with the process with the photographs, the photographs didn't happen simultaneously with the interviews. But what we did do, what Nandini, Preeti, and colleagues did do, is to share the transcripts from the interviews with photographers. So they had a sense of, what was shared, what was said, the kind of experiences women survivors had, and then they, went and took the photographs within the different states, so in Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and West Bengal, but all had their own kind of different interpretation of the brief, if you like. And as a team, we were kind of somewhat divided about whether it was an empowering statement to take photos with women who were visibly recognizable, and certainly, in some cases, we felt that was a strong thing to do, an empowering thing to do. But as a kind of a project in the end, what we have are images which are not visibly recognizable, because in many cases these are actors or women that people have met, the photographers have met in their everyday lives in their different contexts where they were photographing. But Nandini might want to speak more about the process with Zebelina, who they worked with in West Bengal.
I think our photographers are there. So Vidya is there. Of course, Debrati and Priya is also there. So if they want to comment on this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, I can't see who's here. But yeah, so there's three different photographers, three different quite distinctive approaches, and not of survivors, but we had lots of debate about whether we should do that or not. And so in West Bengal, Debelina did take some photographs with survivors, but they're not featuring in this particular project or the open access gallery.
Just to add before Vidya and Priya can speak, we went to the homes of some of the survivors, but in the photos taken, the survivors are not featured. People from the community are featured in that way, and in others there are none of them are the survivors. And to add to what Philippa said, the briefs of some 10 to 12 interviews were shared with Debolina, who was our photographer. She went through the transcripts to understand what we were doing. And one thing that was very clearly the mandate was not to show pictures of violence, because we were talking more about resilience. So the pictures are more about women who are able to manage the violence and still survive despite whatever has gone on in their lives. So over to Priya and Vidya now.
Priya is not here, so just
Oh,
Vidya.
okay.
Oh, I think all of them are here. Okay. Vidya, would you like to comment?
And this is Vidya's photograph on the screen now.
Yes.
Um, sorry, I don't have specifically anything to share, but congratulations about the whole products you have made. It is very important for dissemination. Regarding photographs, the question, yeah, means we followed the brief actually, that not to identify the subjects we are taking photographing, and not showing violence directly, but the focus was on survival. So whatever interviews I read, and I got a sense of uh, uh, things women do to survive, that we try to capture symbolically. So that was the attempt actually. Um and it's open to interpretation. It's not means survival itself is a open to interpretation. This concept of survival. Similarly, the photographs is also open to interpretation. What the photographer uh, uh, sees and captures is one thing, but since the photographs are in open domain, they are open to interpretation, and they are an attempt to show the element of survival in the context of domestic violence, because usually it is shown like women feel shameful and they hide their faces, these kind of usual narrative. We try to go away from that and try to see what women. So that's why I haven't seen the photographs, but the one just shown that the softness is there, that the women, then there is a reflection women go through. So there are some photographs with women in water, the reflection. Then some are showing them in dark backgrounds. So there is darkness, yet there is light and bright colors. And so all these elements, photographic elements, we try to use in projecting the element of the aspect of survival, as is explored or experienced by these women. That's all. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very
Yeah.
nice to hear. The creative process is quite intriguing.
Yeah. Thank you.
If there are no other comments or questions, shall we wrap up? Get a reminder that the link to the project page is in the chat, and I will just put it in again.
I have one question, Swarna, that is comment. There is one message from Prasanna, and she has shared the National Domestic Violence Hotline.
That's PCVC's hotline, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm here. Congratulations. And I think it's great work. And to all those people who had asked about the sample size, I really know how difficult it would have been to be sensitive and trauma informed and keeping to all those principles and interviewing the survivors, not re-victimizing them, etc. Congratulations. And yes, I put down the hotline number because some of them had asked questions on, service provision and so on. So if anybody wants to reach out. And I did have a question. There's a lot of handbooks that we have produced. If we can, if it's okay, we can also add it onto this site, if that's allowed. So we can email it to Prajna and you can consider adding it onto the website so it's available to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prasanna, you also have a lot of videos in the last couple of years.
Yes, we have ads,
Yeah.
we have videos. We can add them on also if it's okay, and lot of material on our social media also, which we regularly produce on a weekly basis. So is there some way of adding it as a resource? We can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read out the PCVC hotline number because it won't show up in the live stream of the video. 1-800-102-7282. That's the Dhwani National Domestic Violence Hotline. 1-800-102-7282. 1-800-102-7282. So, shall we wrap up on that note? Thank you, everybody, for coming by in your lunchtime. And we will start sharing all of these materials everywhere that we can. And we hope that you will help us get the word out and get them used as well. Thank you so much. Thank you to my colleagues from the project. Some you see, some are quietly sitting in the chat. So call everyone's names out. Nandini, Ruchira, Shupurna, who's not here, Kulika is not here, Sudaroli from Tamil Nadu, Girija from Maharashtra, Preeti, of course, Philippa and Shazia, all of us. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Swana. Thanks, all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.